Hi guys, and welcome to the Freeman Show. Today we have an amazing episode regarding the power of the mind. The mind is a very powerful vehicle and how to change it and what to do to make things happen. Now we all know we have stumbling blocks and plateaus in our life, but the key is if you change the mind, you have a different reality. So therefore I brought one of the best clinical hypnotherapists in the world, personal development expert, good friend of mine, Dominic Knight.
Hey, Dominic. Hey. Thank you for having me here.
How are you, Dominic?
Yeah, very good, very good.
So, Dominic, you have experience in hypnotherapy, personal development, and how did you get involved, firstly, into it? What's your story behind it?
Well, my story, I've always been interested in taking myself a level further, human potential, getting the most out of myself and getting the most out of others. So, over a decade ago, I was quite heavily involved in corporate sales, but it didn't really feel like that was my calling in life, and I started to study a little bit more about personal enhancement to do a little bit better with myself and with my abilities.
Optimized performance?
Oh yeah, optimized performance. So initially I was learning to optimize my own performance within the field of what I was doing. And then,
were you at the time dealing with your own fears or something else?
The thing is, I wanted to hit particular sales records. Now, if you look at any company, you have... Sometimes if you look at big sales organisations, you have, let's say, 100 people there. They all have exactly the same scripts and they're also pitching to the same people. And this was a really interesting thing that I found.
Sales is a process.
Yeah, it's a process, but you'd have like one person would be earning, let's say, £1 million a year, and there'll be another person in the same field, same script, targeting the same... the same marketplace would earn absolutely nothing. So I was always curious about what was the differentiating factor there?
What's the difference that makes a difference?
What's the difference that makes a difference? Because you're giving the same tools. So, and that really spurred on within myself a desire to learn more about how the mind works. And it kind of one thing led to another, and I found that my natural calling in life was really to help people get the most out of themselves. Now, the only way I could really accomplish that or achieve that was by getting the most out of myself.
Of course, you've got to be the example.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went on a quest. I read something close to 1,000 of the greatest books ever written in the area of personal development, philosophy, psychology. I also went on to study with some of the greatest minds in the world, because I thought, like anything, if you want to get exceptional, you want to get good at something, you look at someone who is an expert in that field and who has the results.
Right.
And the key thing here that we're talking about really is results, because there are loads of people out there that are academically very sharp, but that's just regurgitated knowledge. You have to look at someone who's actually got what you want or what you want to achieve out of life and follow that path.
And I agree with you, human nature is to mimic other people. Since hunting gatherers, we used to mimic the guy who was the best at hunting, and we got really good at it. And just like society right now, we are all looking for role models, and sometimes we just have the wrong role model. We have shitty role models, and we pick people that do not actually have the experience. They might talk it, but they don't talk the walk, right?
Absolutely.
And so with your process is you model high-achieving, successful people.
High-achieving, successful people. But further to that, in my my Harley Street clinic, I've over the past decade, I've worked with thousands of people from all across the world, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out particular patterns within people. So I've had people who've come to see me with particular phobias, with addictions, people who've wanted to break sales records, and the reason I've been able to achieve the results I have with them is that I don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes people think that things are really complicated, it's very difficult to achieve particular results. That the reality is, to get to where you want to be, in fact, is very, very simple. However, it's not easy. If you think about for a moment, you as a world champion yourself and person who's trained literally legions of people in achieving the type of results they've wanted with their bodies, the process of what you take them through is not complicated. It's actually a fairly straightforward thing. You eat good, clean foods, you train regularly with principles which are proven, and you have the result. Now,
there's a formula to everything.
There's a formula. Now, the reality is this, and this was something which I discovered, was that as human beings, if, for example, I give you a formula of, let's say, how to make £1 million in property, how to have a six-pack, how to make £1 million on eBay, the formula I give you can work 100% of the time. But the reality is, and this has been scientifically proven, 100% of the time you cannot follow it.
Right.
Because we're hardwired. This is our genetics. It's in our genes. If I give you a formula to follow something, the moment there's a degree of discomfort, guess what? You're on your phone, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're switching on the television. The moment there's a discomfort. Now, I discovered a way of overriding that genetic programming. So when there is that level of discomfort, you have the ability to follow through. And that's what distinguishes what I do to literally anyone else. I help override that process. So let's say someone has a fear of flying. Just about a year ago, I worked with 74 flight phobics who I was able to cure inside of 45 minutes. Now, most people will think, well, you know, how is that possible? Right. That's impossible. How can you achieve results really that quickly? The reality...
You helped somebody on the phone with it too.
Oh, yeah, actually, there was...
earlier, yeah.
This is the story I was telling you about earlier. I had a mother call me from Miami. She wanted me to fly out and work with her son who was suffering from a particular issue. But my schedule was too busy at the time. And I said to her, well, fly over. Let me work with him. And then she goes, well, I can't because I'm a flight phobic. Now, in the course of a short 10-minute conversation where I didn't even mention flying, I helped override that mechanism that was triggering her fear without her even being aware of it.
Right,
a couple of weeks later, she's sitting in my office next to me and her son is opposite me and she says, what the hell did you say to me? I got on that flight and I came to see you. How did you cure me? Well, you know, it sounds like magic, but it really isn't. There's a particular process and there's a mechanism that anyone can learn that can help overcome their fears. And that
process, for those people who don't know, like when we think about the concept of the mind and what is the mind, there's components of it. Like you have the conscious mind, you have the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. And what you do in terms of like your expertise, you tap into which area?
Well, into the unconscious.
And why is that so powerful compared to your conscious mind? Why does like, if I decide I want to change something about myself, whatever it might be like just cutting alcohol, but I can't do it, but I really do want, and there's this cognitive dissonance, there's this thing where like, I know it's bad for me, but I still do it. Right, and the conscious mind wants to do it, but the other part is just so powerful that it overrides.
Powerful, yeah.
Right?
That's a good question.
How do you? Well, you know how to.
Well,
but
here's the thing: only 5% of our behaviour is conscious. 95% is unconscious. We are literally bundles of unconscious responses. So whenever we get into a routine of doing something, it becomes a habit.
Right.
So we're always on autopilot. So
it's like flying a plane, but you're on autopilot.
You're on autopilot. So the reality...
So change direction is quite hard.
Yeah, you can't change direction unless you change a program. It's almost like if you look in the mirror, you don't like what you see and you try and change the reflection. It doesn't work that way. You have to change it from within. Absolutely, get those squats out. But you have to change it from within. That's why when people want to make a change, if you go to anyone on the street, do you want a great relationship? Do you want to be in shape? Do you want to make money? Do you want to be happy?
They will say yes.
Yeah, who's going to say no? But why can't they do it? It's because they're trying to deal with that 5% of the conscious mind, which doesn't control the programming. Yeah. It's under the bonnet. It's in the unconscious. So when I work with people, I work on two levels. I work very logically. I explain to them how it works. And then I tap into those mechanisms to literally change the programming of their mind in a very, very quick way.
So you're updating the software.
Absolutely.
It's just like every time... My Apple and the Mac just would like update the next software.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you got an old software. It's not going to be working any programs.
Yeah, it's true because people have those programs running. As I said to you, 95% of human behaviour is all subconscious.
Right.
So if you have those programs running, what happens with a lot of traditional methods where people are trying to help someone get better, they say, well, in order to overcome this fear or to get through this addiction or to break this sales performance, it will take months or years. Simply not true. The brain isn't designed that way. A fear can be established in a fraction of a second. And guess what? Who's to say that you can't overcome a fear in a fraction of the second?
And people do in life.
Absolutely.
So it can
now,
happen.
if we look at the status quo, most people will say, well, no, that's not possible. It will take a long time. But they're denying part of reality. Well, if a problem can be established that quickly, surely it can be solved as well.
Right.
And that's why I've come from the premise of, well,
you had this game changer, right, in terms of what you do.
Absolutely.
And the game changer being this 14 seconds. It could take 14 seconds to change any behavior. Like, even to me, that's kind of crazy. Like, you can really do that in 14 seconds?
Well, a lot of people, they'll say to me, well, is that really possible? Look, you know what? The answer to the question is change takes place in a moment. Do you see? You don't even see it happening. The reason I came up with a concept of 14 seconds, and it was actually featured in a book I co-authored with
Brian Tracy.
Yeah, with Brian Tracy, was that if you focus on a thought for about 14 seconds and you intensify it with emotion, even when you're not thinking about it, that thought continues to resonate. So what I done, was a really clever method, was I'd have my clients for 14-second intervals constantly focus upon that behaviour they want to develop.
Right.
Now, if they keep doing that, it becomes part of their unconscious wiring.
It becomes part of the naturing.
Absolutely, very simple. There was some research done which showed, and it's really interesting, that if you're anxious for about 5 or 6 minutes, it resides in the nervous system for 6 hours. So there's always backlogged of emotion. Absolutely. Now, why not have a residue of incredible, powerful, potent feelings that will get you to where you want to be in life? The way you do that is with simple repetition, then it becomes unconscious. As I said to you, it's not complicated. You'll find someone say, well, you know...
But can it work for everybody? Or just that some people are just tough to work through?
Well, it's how your mind works. It's like saying, well, if someone eats good whole foods regularly and they have the relevant amount of exercise, will they lose weight? Well, the answer is quite simply yes.
Right.
Do you see? It becomes, you know, the way the mind works and the way the body works, it's that principle of not overcomplicating it. People overcomplicate things. They say, well, maybe it'll work for some, but it won't work for others. The reality is, if you're focusing upon good, happy feelings continuously, if you imagine yourself the way you truly want to be, what's going to happen? That idea will sink into your unconscious behaviour and becomes part of who you are. It doesn't work the other way. If you look at a lot of traditional methods, by looking at problems, you know, it doesn't always resolve it. It's like if you cut your thumb, holding it open and staring into it isn't going to heal it. Or heal it is to put a plaster and just get on with your life.
Right, just move on. Instead of reinforcing the feeling, the thinking and the emotion, that it's just kind of more hardwiring it even stronger, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I say
that's why like those great, it's like especially when, like, after a breakup and everyone listens to like sad music, it's so addictive, and all it does, it plays it over again. And then after
it amplifies all that.
Right.
So we're talking about, instead of amplifying the bad, let's amplify the good. Let's take things to another level. You know, just the other week, I had someone. Well, actually, it wasn't a week. It was a few months ago. I had someone come over to work with me who was he was working in Savile Row, and he wanted to up the level of sales that he was doing.
Was in tailoring?
In tailoring, yeah. And I said to him really quite simply, well, what are the highest earners in your industry earning? So he gave me X amount of figures, and I said to him, well, what stops you from achieving that? And, well, you know, I started late, I'm not that persuasive. I mean, there was every single story in the book. So I stripped that all away, and I just said to him, look, how do you truly want to be? What number do you want?
Right.
You know. And
you asked him quality questions.
Yeah, I asked him quality questions. You know, what do you truly want to achieve? And by having him conceive that idea in his imagination of what he truly wanted, not what he thought he could get, but what he truly wanted, I had him embed that so deeply in his mind that several months later he broke a 30-year sales record. Check this out, Lazo. $170,000 worth of suits inside of a single afternoon.
That's phenomenal.
Okay. Now...
You turned him into an assassin.
He always had the ability within him to do that.
Right.
But what got in his way was a story he kept telling himself. You know, and if you look at why, you know, most people, they'll say, well, I'm not where I want to be because of so-and-so, because of my girlfriend, because of my wife, because of my husband, because of this.
Religion,
society, because colour, age. You know, strip all that away. Get rid of the story. In fact, this is the most important concept to really capture, Lazo, is like everything is imagination. You can't point to anything in this entire room that wasn't first part of someone's imagination.
Something that's been conceived.
Everything is conception, it's imagination. Now, the majority, 95% of people, they think about what they don't want to experience. So if I say to you, don't think of the colour blue, boom. Now, if someone is about to embark on a business, they'll think, well, I don't want it to fail. Now, what they're introducing into their imagination is failure. Now, the subconscious mind is impartial, so it doesn't care whether you're thinking of something positive or negative. So if you're thinking of what you don't want, you're conceiving that idea, and that idea then, therefore, eventually becomes expressed in the external world. It's very simple.
By like feeling itself?
By the feeling, yeah. So you're focused, well, I want to do really well, but I don't want to screw up. It doesn't work that way. If you look at the highest achievers in the world, if you look at people who've done exceptional in business, in the Olympics, it's failure isn't an option. They focus on what they want to the exclusion of anything else.
Isn't failure an option more like they don't care to fail? If they fail, great, but they learn from it and they improve.
Yeah, they learn from it.
Right.
Well, ultimately, if you look at the whole concept of failure, the only time you fail is if you quit and you say, well, I'm not going to continue.
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
I 100% agree that's failure. But if you're picking yourself up each and every time, that's not failure, that's learning, that's getting stronger. And I think you'll like this example. When does the muscle grow?
Through failure.
Exactly.
Failure, yeah.
You can't grow a muscle without it failing. And as individuals...
And it's overcome resistance.
Yeah, overcoming the resistance. It's like if you look at, let's say, if you look at an egg and there's a little chick in that egg, if you break that egg, you will kill that chick that's about to hatch from there. That chick needs to work against the resistance to break through and to birth life.
Right.
So sometimes when we go through resistance in life, that's the very thing that we need to take us to that
But
next
that's
level.
the funny thing. I think it's the whole idea. Like when you see a child when they're learning from crawling to walking, and they fall down, they don't say, "Okay, that's it. I failed. I'm going to sit here.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do this again." They just get up, right? But as we
Exactly,
get older,
yeah.
we get like, what's this? Self-critical.
Well,
we get
you know the
self-doubt, we get this
reason-
imposter syndrome, and there's all these stupid voices that
It's
come from
true.
God knows where.
Do you know by the time we're 18, we're told, no, you can't do that 170,000 times. Statistically proven. So if someone's constantly reinforcing to you that you can't do something, well, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, that becomes the first thing. The
That becomes reality, right?
Yeah, the reality is this: if you have a true inclination towards something where, you know, it's your heart's desire, you are genetically able to achieve what you want to achieve. That's why, let's say if you look at sumo wrestler, the sumo wrestler doesn't have this obsessional desire to become a ballerina. No. Ballerina doesn't have this obsession to one day become a sumo wrestler in Tokyo. It doesn't work that way. Whatever we are...
Fight, though.
Yeah, it would be a good fight. But the way we are, our size, our body, the way we think, it's always designed to accomplish what we desire to achieve. Right? So the only thing that will get in the way of your accomplishment is simply your self-limiting beliefs and your fears. When you overcome those and you override those things, then you take yourself to really great heights.
That's fascinating. And fear itself is just an illusion.
Well,
like I from my own experience, achieving certain things in my life, it's never as bad as you think it is. Like, you feel it regardless and you do it, but once it's done, it's like, why was I...
Yeah, what was I so afraid of?
Stressing about? Why was I getting heart palpitations and sweaty palms and all this kind of craziness?
Well, fear, but people say there's a great acronym, people say force evidence appearing real, but also fantasizing evidence appearing real. So fear is really a fantasy about some future event going wrong. If I work with someone who's a phobic or someone's afraid of their relationship breaking up, they're fantasizing about the result they don't want to achieve. And
if whatever you fear, you draw near.
Exactly. And then they're thinking, well, how can I not overcome this? Well, it's really simple. You're fantasizing about that all day long, and then you're trying to get your body to do something different. It doesn't work that way. So why not have this beautiful image in your mind of how you want to be, what you want to experience? Do you see? Like, let's say someone wants to be great at presentations. Well, just imagine a standing applause, right? Keep coaching yourself, encourage yourself. You see, 95% as well of what we feel is based on our inner communication.
Yeah, so we all self-talk, right?
Absolutely.
We all talk to ourselves, and it's what is that language?
What's
who
the
are you
quality?
talking to? And does that person actually love you? That's the thing. I think like some people are like worse self-critics and they beat themselves up, and it's just like, don't listen to that voice. Have some compassion and start from that place.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the voice serves a purpose, as it's trying to protect you, but there's got to be that point where you take control of the reins, right? You transform that inner critic into an inner coach. What if that inner voice inside your head is encouraging you to do great things in your life? What if you become addicted to becoming the very best you? You see, addictions as well serve a purpose. If you became addictive or compulsive to creating great change in the world, I think that would be a great addiction or compulsion to have.
That's phenomenal. You'll just have massive impact, a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
As a collective conscious. In terms of like we just spoke about, you read thousands of books. What are
Yes.
like some of the books that you recommend?
Well, okay, books I recommend. Actually, one of my all-time favourite books is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, fantastic.
And also The Laws of Success in 16 Lessons, which is another book by Napoleon Hill. Phenomenal books.
What about those books? What is it about?
Well, what it is about those books was Napoleon Hill had spent close to, well, for The Laws of Success in 16 Lessons was over a 25-year project, which
That's a long book.
he was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie, who, if you Google Carnegie, you'll see is the second richest guy who ever lived in history.
Right.
He was the guy who started the steel industry in America. He had taken Napoleon Hill on board and commissioned Napoleon Hill, but his commission was simply this. Napoleon Hill was to interview the greatest people alive in his day, from presidents of America to the Edisons to the Henry Fords of his day. He was to live, learn and study from these people how they think. And in that 25-year study, this is what he concluded, which was fascinating, that the most successful people, the people who have made the biggest breakthroughs in history of mankind, had nothing to do with education, religion, age, gender, whether they were abused or not abused as children, orphan, not orphan, had nothing to do with any
stories
of that.
again.
Yeah, it's just stories. The only determining factor was that they had this burning desire, this obsessional thought of what they wanted to achieve. So the emotion was in there and they kept thinking about it. And eventually they got what they wanted, right? Whereas the 95% of people that failed, what he saw, it had nothing to do with upbringing or religion or colour or any gender. It was completely down to the fact that they kept focusing on what they didn't want to experience. And really simply, Lazo, as I explained to you before, is everything's imagination. So if you're holding in your mind the idea of debt or failure or being overweight or being ill, what are you doing? It's expressing itself in your body.
Yeah.
So by changing that blueprint and imagining yourself the way you truly want to be and not allowing any other thought, so the objective reality might show something completely different. I think you're a good example for this because, Lazo, right, before you became a world champion, in all due respect,
I feel like I'm in
you
therapy
had
right
a
now. I'm
pot
getting
belly, you were fat, right?
Yes.
You were not, I mean, if I saw this guy, it's just like, this guy isn't going to do anything.
I wasn't in the best shape.
You were
be
not in
honest.
good shape, right? But what was the thing that changed it? There was a moment of cognition in your mind where you really, really ingrained that thought of an amazing physique in your body, even though your objective world showed something completely different. When you looked in the mirror, you didn't have the body. But you kept that idea in your head until it translated itself.
Right.
And you paid the price to make it happen. The thing is, a lot of people, they want all sorts of things. Well, I want a great relationship, great body, great this and that. Now, what stops them from achieving that is really simple. It's they're thinking of the absence of it, of what they don't want, and they're also not doing the thing that will entitle them to that.
You gotta take some action, get your fingers dirty,
Absolutely.
you gotta do the work.
The action and the thought, when you combine the two and you fuse the two, then you can literally create miracles in your life.
Yeah, definitely. When you were talking about that moment when I decided to make a change, and I do still remember it distinctly, and it's a feeling I had as a child, like this feeling that I was signed up for something. So at the time, I was doing biochemical engineering, overweight, didn't really like what's going on in my life, all these excuses. And I remember seeing something where they said the ancient Greeks believed when you strengthen the body, you strengthen the mind. And but the main feeling that I felt was what I was doing in my life, this is not what I signed up. Like the pain of that was nothing compared to the pain I'm going to have through the actual physical transformation. Like the whatever I have to do to make this thing happen. But that pain was like outweighed this. I'd rather go to the gym in the morning and sit for the nutrition and do whatever I had to do to make it happen.
Well, do you see
is there this thing where you need a gradient? Sometimes you have to feel enough pain somewhere else to go, fuck it, I need to make a change. Or can you do it without that?
Well, sometimes you need
suffer so much.
Sometimes you need, but the suffering is the compassion of the universe. The pain is the compassion of the universe, because that's how the universe talks to us. I'll give you a really fascinating statistic here, that human beings are the only species who predictably die on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Okay, it's been proven.
Monday blues.
Okay, and the reason why that is, this is what researchers have found, is like, how can you have a species die on a particular time, on a particular date, when there's no other species in existence that does that?
Right.
Simply job dissatisfaction. You can't do what you're not designed to do. Steve Jobs loved technology. Bill Gates loves computers, right? So what do? Warren Buffett loves investing. You love bodybuilding. You can't go against your natural grain. My late grandfather always taught me this, because he was a carpenter. He said, like, whenever we used to file wood, he'll say, always go with the natural grain. Don't go against it. You'll damage the wood. You won't be able to create anything. And in life, I think that's a great metaphor as well for life. You have to go this time on earth is sacred. You can't spend it doing something that you don't love to do. If you're not doing, if you try and force yourself to do something that you don't like, you'll never achieve any results in it, or the results will be mediocre. If you go with something which is a natural grain, that you feel is right, that you feel is your natural calling, then you put your whole heart into it, then you'll make it happen.
This is true. Wise words. This is really true.
Thank you.
You did your training too.
Absolutely.
And so basically, I worked with Dominic. The way I found out about it was training was through Times Magazine.
Okay.
Reading about your articles, and then a friend of mine introduced me to, mutual friend introduced each other. And so Dominic helped me out with some sort of hypnotherapy, and it does work. I was skeptical. I always thought, like, you can't hypnotize everybody. And that's just my ego telling me.
I mean, it's a universal phenomenon. Your brain does it every 90 minutes.
But we watch like Paul McKenna and all those other people, like, you can't hypnotize everybody, and everyone thinks that. But is there anybody out there you just cannot hypnotize?
Well, no, I mean, because the brain goes into those alpha and delta states anyway. So even if someone says, I can't be hypnotized, they don't know what they're saying, because the brain naturally does that anyway.
Right.
But
it's like watching a great movie. You're in a trance.
Absolutely. You're in a trance. So someone will be calling you, Lazo. And you're calling me, because your mind is so focused on that reality. Do you see? So everyone has the ability to get themselves into those states. And the reason those states work really effectively is because your conscious mind is out of the way. And any suggestions given to you when you're in those alpha or delta states are more easily acceptable in the unconscious state. Or in the subconscious state. So that's why it's really important, as I mentioned to you, to deal with both levels. So you work with a conscious mind, but you also work with your imagination. If you keep working with your imagination, work with the subconscious mind, then you get the results, or you get to where you want to be.
It's all about imagination, it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the difference is distinguish between imagination and fantasies.
Absolutely.
Right, and then that's the
because
problem.
Look,
because when you're a kid, like, you heard the word imagination, you think, like, it's just fantasial. So, you kind of all put that to one side, but it's actually the most powerful creative factor that we have.
Absolutely. It's the most potent power literally in the universe, because everything, as we said before, was once conceived in someone's imagination. Then they cultivated enough desire to start to act upon it. Do you see? And then when you act upon it and you do the necessary things that will entitle you to the results that you want to achieve out of life, then, slowly but surely you get to where you want to be. Because it's not just wishful thinking or law of attraction, and it doesn't work that way. It's combined with the action and doing the things that entitle you to that. If you want a great body, you can't wish for a great body. You have to take the necessary steps to make it happen. But when you combine the thought, the imagination with the action, then you've got something very powerful, very potent. In my years of working with a number of different A-list celebrities, I've worked with billionaires, I've even worked with people who are homeless. So right across the spectrum, you'll find there are common laws, universal laws, which are inescapable, and people get to where they are in life based on their thinking. If you change how you think, your external results around the world will absolutely change.
I totally agree with you. And you, at the moment, like, if anybody out there who wants to get hold of you, but you also do a training course in your particular methods, and getting successes pretty quickly, with your client, but firstly working on yourself.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
no point like trying to help people. You get all these experts, so they actually need help. You get like life coaches. I'm like, dude, man, you need a life first before you can be coaching about life coaching. So,
exactly. I mean, I remember I was in Beverly Hills in I was at the hotel. And I was with a couple of people there, and I overheard a conversation, and one of the hotel staff was asking this lady, what are you doing over here in Beverly Hills? And she said, well, I'm here on this major conference on depression. And then the guy reeled off a whole number of different drugs that he was on, and he said, well, I'm on this and this and this and this. And she goes, oh, that's great, I'm also on them as well. Mm-hmm. And then I just thought, well, how can you be delivering a conference on depression, how to overcome depression when you're clinically depressed? It doesn't make sense. It's like, if you go to, if there's a clinically obese personal fitness trainer. You know, it's just
It's incongruent.
It's incongruent. So you have to, you have to walk your walk. You have to talk your talk. You have to be consistent with who you are or the message that you're delivering to the world. It's absolutely, absolutely essential.
Right.
Absolutely essential.
And I know you personally, so I know you've taken that in your family life, your social life, your work. You can apply these principles in all facets and all areas of your life.
Yes.
Right. And then for those who want to take it to the next level and to be the best in their field,
yes,
it's the same.
So that's why, it's the same technology. That's why I devised a couple of training programs which will be launched later on this year, but a program where other life coaches or people in the medical profession or therapists can learn the techniques I've used that have created very quick radical change with the clients I've used, because that's very different to learning particular ideas and philosophies and principles that haven't been tested. Again, with what I do, and my great inspiration as well from the fitness world, from bodybuilding world, it has to be results orientated. So if you're going to learn from someone who's got the results. Further than that,
get the results yourself.
Get the results yourself in your own life. Become the person you truly want to be.
Right.
There's a quote from Greg Plitt, in fact, in the bodybuilding world. He goes, pay your dues, become the person you want to be. It's the easiest effing equation in the world. Right. It really is. You just pay your dues, you become that person. It's very simple. But always walking your walk and talking your talk. You have to be congruent with what you do.
And then for people to get hold of you, is it DominicKnight.com?
No, DominicKnight.co.uk is my website. And I, though I have external staff working there, I do attempt to read every email that comes through. I don't get emails from literally every corner of the planet. So there might sometimes be a little bit of backlog when it comes to questions and answers. But there's also a free chapter of my book, Pushing to the Front. 14 seconds, which you can download from the homepage of my website, which I encourage everyone to have a read through. They'll like it.
I definitely would recommend Dominic Knight to anybody. It is mind over matter, and this conversation does matter to you and to everybody else. Check out Dominic Knight, and thank you very much, Dom. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Lazo. Real pleasure.